Hey guys, so today I'm going to discuss something that's a little more on a personal note. I'm actually going to discuss my birth. And the reason I'm going to discuss my birth is because I was born 4 months premature. My mom was 21 weeks pregnant when she gave birth to me. And so I kind of wanted to give my testimony about how my birth was and how my life has been since then. So my mom had had a troubled pregnancy with my older brother. He was born at 7 months, so he was a premature baby as well. When she got pregnant with me, she had even more medical problems than she had had with him. She developed preeclampsia and she developed jaundice, so she had to go to the emergency room. And it's a good thing she did because I was born while she was in the emergency room for her preeclampsia and her jaundice. And nobody was expecting me to arrive yet because she was only 21 weeks pregnant. She was barely even showing at that point. But I was so tiny that I literally just slipped out of her body. She was trying to hold me into her body with her hand because I would have fallen right out of her. That's how small I was. There was no contractions. There was no having to push, nothing. I just slid right out of her. And the doctors didn't think I was going to survive. You know, this was the 80s. I was born in 1987. This was the 80s. They had no hopes that I was going to survive. They thought my mom was going to die as well. And so they air vac'd us to another hospital. And, you know, when I was born, I weighed 2 pounds and 3 ounces. I was 13 inches in length. By the next day, because I was struggling so hard to breathe and my heart was beating so rapidly, I had dropped down to 1 pound and 7 ounces. My lungs were not fully developed because I only made it to 21 weeks. And my esophagus here, I don't know if you can see, there's a scar right here on my neck, this little tiny scar. That's because when they were trying to put the tube down my throat, the tube was too big to fit, and so they had to actually go in there and stretch out my esophagus so that that tube would fit. And somewhere I'm in a medical book as being the youngest patient at the time to receive this surgery. I don't know which medical book, but I'm in one somewhere. And so because my lungs weren't developed and I was having trouble breathing through my esophagus, they had me on oxygen. And because I was on the oxygen for so long, it affected my vision, which, as a lot of you guys know, I have esotropia, which is double vision, and I'm also legally blind in this eye. And so I can see out of it, but it's very dim, it's very dark. And I didn't develop the esotropia until I was 17, but it does stem from being on the oxygen, according to my doctor. I was also in patches when I was around 5 years old, so they would patch up my good eye to try to force my bad eye to work. And it did work, but once they removed the patch, it went right back to how it was before the patch. Alright, so I just had to take my dog to potty, so I'm back. So the oxygen affected my vision, as I just mentioned. It also destroyed part of my brain. So I have something known as birth hypoxic brain damage. And essentially that's just part of my brain was destroyed. And the part that was destroyed was the part that deals with math, numbers, telling time, directions, things like that. So basically, because that part of my brain does not exist, my brain has to store that information in a different part of the brain that wouldn't typically store it. And if I continually, kind of learn that information day in and day out, I'll remember it. But if I go a certain period of time, 6 months or however long where I'm not learning it, 3 months, my brain won't remember where it stored that information at. And it'll just be lost to the wind. And so essentially I'll just have to relearn everything all over again because my brain doesn't remember where it had originally stored it. So I was in learning disabled math classes all throughout school. I never learned my multiplication chart. I still count and subtract, add and subtract on my fingers if I don't have a calculator. I didn't learn how to read a standard wall clock until I was around 13 because I would look at it and it would just look like gibberish to me. I get turned around very easily. I get lost very easily, even in my hometown that I've been living around since I was 7 years old. If I come onto a street from a different direction than what I'm used to coming to, I will get completely disoriented. I'll have to pull into a parking lot and kind of look around and get my bearings and figure out where I'm at, even though I've been on the street a million times. And if I'm going anywhere that I'm not used to going on a regular basis, I won't go unless I have GPS, because I get lost so easily. I get turned around so easily. I'm very directionally challenged. And even like when I went to junior high and high school, because I would get lost and I would get disoriented on the campus, they made it to where I wouldn't get in trouble if I was late for class, because, you know, especially in the beginning, once I started getting into a routine and getting the campus down, I'd be fine, but I would just get so disoriented and couldn't figure out where I was at. And so in the beginning, I mean, that was good, but after a while, I wouldn't need it. So I was in LD math classes all throughout school. However, the rest of my brain works fine. I did great in English. I did great in history. I did okay in science. That's not my favorite subject, but I did okay in it. I was mostly an A-B student. And when I graduated high school, I had a 4.5 GPA. My ACT, I made a 24 on it my very first time of taking it, and I didn't even study for it. The only reason it wasn't higher was because my math had brought it down so much. I did so poorly in the math section that I couldn't make higher than a 24. But if that part of my brain worked like the rest of my brain, I'm sure it would have been much, much higher. So I do have issues with math. I do have issues with numbers. It did limit me when I attempted to go to college. I say attempted. I did go to college. I have a degree in court reporting, but there were certain degrees that I really wanted, such as archaeology. I wanted to be an archaeologist because I have such a love and a passion for history. But because it required all sorts of different math classes and science classes, I just knew there was no way in hell I was going to pass. No way in hell. I think it required chemistry and things like that, and my brain just won't do it. So there were certain degrees that I really wanted, and I just couldn't do it because I knew the limits of my brain. So that's the only thing that really bothers me, is that limitation there. But, you know, as far as day-to-day basis, I'm fine as far as like counting money and things like that. I used to have really poor time-telling skills when I was younger. I think I'm better now, but my husband swears up and down that I'm still bad at it, at telling time and determining when I need to leave for things. But when I was in the first grade, when they first started putting me in the LD classes, they had me in LD classes for everything. Math, English, history, everything. And they told my mom that I probably wasn't going to graduate high school. They told my mom that they'd put me in a work program and I'd probably just go on to be a janitor after school finished. And that really pissed my mom off because she knew that I was capable of so much more than what they were saying I was capable of. So she really fought to get me regulated in the normal classes at the school. I still did have my LD math classes, but as far as English, history, and all of that, I attended regular classes with everyone else. Because she knew that I was smarter than what they thought that I was. And you know, I was. I excelled in school. I really did. I was accepted into one of the best colleges in the state after I graduated high school. I have a degree in court reporting. So I was really, really blessed to have such a diligent mom, a mom who fought for me, a mom who would spend hours upon hours trying to help me to understand my math because I would get so confused by it and so frustrated. I would have these horrible headaches and I'd be in tears because I just wasn't grasping it. And, you know, my mom was an amazing mother when I was growing up. She fought so hard for me. She put so much of her time and energy into helping me become the person I am now. And now I'm getting teary-eyed. She was an amazing mom, and I was blessed to have her. So there's that. As far as other disabilities go, my right leg from the knee down is twisted slightly. And I didn't even know it was there until I was 16. I had had ankle surgery on my Achilles tendons, and my physical therapist that I had attended after my surgery noticed that my leg was twisted. And so I wasn't walking properly because of it. If I try to run, I don't run properly and my hip will pop. So, you know, when it comes to working out and stuff, I don't do running. I can't do it. I don't have the right form and my back starts to hurt and not good. But that is a birth defect that I suffered while in the womb, is that twisted leg. And it's just slight. It's not terribly noticeable, but you do notice it. Like, I can tell. And of course, I've always been small. I'm 4'9" in height. Ever since I was born at 2 pounds 3 ounces, I've been tiny my entire life. So I'm pretty much used to it. I wear a size 2 in children's shoes. Like, my hands, like, I have little child size. Let me see if I can. So this is a hairbrush, just a regular hairbrush, and this is my hand. So I don't know if you can kind of gauge how small that is, but yeah. Now my eyes are itching because they're watering. I have allergies right now. Anyways, my mom, the other day, she went in to have her lung biopsy because she's been having problems with her lung for the past 1.5 to 2 years. And after the biopsy, she went home for like 4 hours, and then she was fine. And then all of a sudden, she started coughing up blood, and her lung collapsed, and she couldn't breathe. And my dad had to rush her to the ER. And they called the doctor to see if maybe he had punctured something, and he says he didn't. He thinks it's pneumonia, but pneumonia doesn't cause you to cough up blood. And so she's been coughing up blood all weekend, and they told her she can't contact her doctor until today, Monday. So I'm going to have to call her later and see how that's going. But anyways, so I have the esotropia, and I'm legally blind in the sight. I've been in glasses since I was 3 years old. I had the birth hypoxic brain damage. I have the twisted leg. The other thing I have is they said that I didn't use my muscles right, that I would lock my joints up. So I was in physical therapy and occupational therapy all throughout my childhood. I don't think that's the case now, because as I'm working out, I can tell that my muscles are getting stronger and firmer. So I know I am using them. But I think when I was little, I probably did use my joints, because I do have serious joint pain sometimes. My ankles, my knees, my hips, my wrists, even this bone here will ache sometimes, especially when it's rainy out or really cold. And I don't know if it's arthritis or if it's because I used to lock my joints as a kid, but I do have that as well. And I think that's about it as far as, disabilities go and problems that I've sustained throughout my life because of my premature birth. I know my mom told me a story before when I was a baby. They were trying to test my vision because they knew the oxygen had destroyed certain parts. So instead of putting me under or giving me some kind of numbing solution, they actually stabbed needles into my eye to pull my eye in different directions, and they didn't numb it or anything. And they wouldn't let my mom in the room because they knew she would put a stop to it, but they let my dad in the room. And my mom could hear me screaming and crying from the hallway, and she was trying to get in there, and my dad came out, and he was very upset. I mean, I don't remember it because I was a baby, but I guess that's something I can throw in there for my birth. Sticking needles in my eyes. But I just want to give my testimony for anybody out there that has a premature baby that is feeling very defeated and very scared or terrified right now about how that child's going to turn out, disabilities that child may sustain. And obviously, not everybody's going to turn out like me. I was very, very blessed. They told my mom that I would most likely have cerebral palsy or mental retardation when I was born. And I was very lucky. I mean, I do have the birth hypoxic brain damage, but it's not a debilitating kind of disease. And, people that talk to me, they don't know that I have that. They don't know that I'm half blind in one eye with esotropia and everything else. They don't know. I seem perfectly normal. Nobody knows unless I tell them. So I am very, very blessed, and I was very, very lucky when I was born. My mom and my grandma always called me their miracle baby when I was growing up, and I hated it at the time. Like, it embarrassed me. But now, as an adult, when I look at it and I think of a baby being born so tiny and so fragile, especially in the 80s, like, I can really see it now. Like, it really was miraculous that I didn't die or sustain worse. Nala? Worse problems. No. You're not knocking this. Come here. Got my cat. She's trying to knock my stuff over. Now also want to throw out there that the reason I was born so premature and the reason my brother was born so premature is because my mom has a disease called antiphospholipid. And this is an autoimmune disease. It's very similar to lupus. It causes miscarriages, it causes blood clots, it causes strokes. It can attack certain organs in your body, things like that. At the time, she didn't know she had it because this disease didn't even have a name in the 80s. But that was the reason that I was born so premature, is because she had antiphospholipid. I was essentially a miscarriage. Her body was miscarrying me. The doctors at the time called it spontaneous abortion, but essentially it was a miscarriage. My brother was born at 7 months. I was born at 5 months. And it is a hereditary disease, so most likely I will have it, or I probably already do and I just don't know it. I haven't been tested yet. My mom said I should probably get tested before I try to get pregnant. And I did mention in one of my previous videos that I was pregnant last year, very briefly, and I did suffer a miscarriage. And I really don't know right now if it's from the antiphospholipid or if it's because I wasn't taking care of my body, because I didn't know I was pregnant at the time. I was drinking, I was doing my 1 meal a day, I was taking different supplements from the health food store. I was not taking care of myself. So I really don't know if it was because of the antiphospholipid or it was simply because I was treating my body so poorly at the time. I was really kind of hesitant to share my story because I don't want to seem like I'm full of myself or anything like that. This would give people more hope, people that are dealing with premature babies, people that are dealing with kids that have disabilities. You know, because I was in my learning disabled math classes, I've been around children with disabilities almost my entire life. You know, people that were wheelchair bound, people that had Down syndrome, children with varying degrees of disabilities. I was around them my entire childhood. And, you know, it was good. It taught me not to judge others. I try really hard not to judge anybody because we're all just human. We're all just trying to get through this life in one piece. Anyways, I don't want to ramble too much, but I hope that this brings hope to anybody that's scared right now. And, you know, if you have any other questions about antiphospholipid or birth hypoxic brain damage or esotropia or anything like that, strabismus surgery, because I've done a few videos on that, please feel free to message me or comment. You know, I'm not an expert on anything by any stretch of the imagination, but if you have any questions or doubts or anything, please let me know. And I guess I'll see you guys later. I hope I didn't blab too much, and I'll see you next time.